Okay, so one of the things that I think is super interesting about being an older athlete is looking at other professional athletes that are older. And of course, the Jordan-LeBron debate is always something that comes up. And you could argue it's a stupid debate. I would probably agree with that. But I could argue that LeBron is the GOAT, or I could argue that Jordan is. Here's what I think is interesting as an aging athlete and as an athlete that's now 43, I'm 43, and I'm trying to take care of my body, but I'm trying to learn from what I observe other people doing. So I actually think that if Jordan treated his body like LeBron, there would be absolutely no debate. I think if Jordan had done the things that LeBron is doing now with his body, the recovery, and I would even argue that there's probably some kind of performance enhancers that LeBron's taking. I don't know that for sure, but my guess would be that there's, at some level, he might be like micro-dosing with something. I'd be interested to hear if somebody else knows for sure. Probably the NBA would never admit it if that was the case and he tested positive for a performance enhancer. But just looking at his body, it seems like there's probably some help. And maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe it's totally natural and he did it all through hard work. But I think if Jordan had treated his body the way LeBron did, there would be absolutely no question that Jordan would be the best player of all time. Now, if you look at their paths to the NBA, Jordan basically had to make his own path. He had to start shoe contracts and negotiate things that had never been negotiated before and overcome being the third-round draft pick, and people weren't sure if he was going to be good or not. Whereas LeBron was like the chosen kid or the golden child that had this path just laid out for him, and he just had to follow it. I think he has followed that path better than probably anyone ever has before. And so that's why I could argue that LeBron's the GOAT. He's definitely going to end up with all of the NBA records, especially if he keeps going the way he's going now. But I really probably, if I had to settle it, I would say Jordan is the GOAT. But he needed LeBron's recovery. And if he had it in that era, he would have far surpassed LeBron's longevity. So here's how I think that applies to runners. And here's the mistake I think we can make as an aging athlete. If you're 40 or over and you've said things in your mind like, I'm getting old, I don't recover as well as I used to, my body aches all the time, I wish I had what I had when I was younger, I would caution you to maybe not say those things, even if you think them, but instead to realize the only reason that when you were younger, you didn't have those injury issues and tons of things that you're dealing with maybe as a 40-year-old where you don't recover as fast, you get sore quicker, there's more injury issues, I think is the hormonal imbalance. So when you're 17, 19, 25, you've got all these support systems in your body. Human growth hormone, testosterone, low cortisol levels, you sleep better. Like you've got all these things that are happening in your body that are your friend, your benefit. When you get to 40, some of those things start to go down. Well, my argument would be when you're 17 to 25, you likely made a ton of training mistakes, a ton of staying up too late, eating the wrong foods, doing too much on one day, not enough on another, not enough days in between workouts. But you had that hormonal support. And so in your mind, you're thinking, oh man, I'm doing things great. I'm recovering well. I'm improving. when in reality, you get to 40, the ideal scenario is you're smart enough and you're doing things right enough to where you can feel like you felt when you were 25. The mistake is if you get to 40 and you're doing the same things you were doing when you were 25. And I think that's the dangerous part of being young and recovering well, is you think you're doing things well when you're really not. It's just your hormonal balance is making up for your mistakes. So when we get to 40 plus or 35 plus, you can feel really good, but you've got to dial in the sleep. I do think there's a cause for some blood testing, B12, D3, iron, even vitamin C levels, which are pretty basic test, testosterone, estrogen, folic acid. So testing your MTHFR, the mother effer gene is what people call it. Testing that gene to see if you're not getting enough folate and what type of folate you need. I think making sure there's enough protein in your diet. There's a really interesting study that was done with Ozempic and Wegovy, these weight loss drugs, where they're giving them these drugs and the participants are losing 1/3 of their body mass in muscle, which is not what you want to do. Like, you don't want to lose 1/3 muscle when you're trying to lose weight because you end up being fatter. You just weigh less. What they did is they gave them 2.2 to 4 grams of protein per kilogram, and they only lost 3 to 5% muscle mass, which is totally reasonable if you're losing a bunch of weight. So what that tells me is if you're going to go into a weight loss program, I definitely wouldn't recommend like the Ozempic route. But even if you're going to lose weight, if you can boost your protein, you're going to hang on to that muscle mass better. And if you're training a lot, even if you're not trying to lose weight, you're just training a ton, you want to keep your muscle mass. We need 2.2 to 4 grams of protein per kilogram body weight. There's great research out there to support that. I think spacing out your recovery days is hugely important. So if you do a big workout day, having 2 easy days, and then hitting a second workout day of the week. And then a big mistake for runners is not counting your long run as a workout. So I have a workout week structure that I think does work for a 40-plus-year-old athlete. And the days of the week don't necessarily matter, but the spacing does. So what I like, and this changes over time as I coach more and learn more, but where I'm at currently is if you work out on Tuesday, your biggest workout is Tuesday. So that would be like really long threshold run or faster stuff that has quite a few intervals associated with it for your ability level. So Tuesday workout, Wednesday and Thursday recovery days, Friday like a B level workout or a C level workout. So something a little bit shorter, a little bit faster, or it could be threshold or VO2 max work, but the volume's not super high. So that would be Friday, Saturday easy, Sunday long run, or a third workout. Then you come back to the start of the week, take Monday off or super easy, and then have your bigger workout. So you've got your A workout Tuesday, your B workout Friday, and then your easiest workout on Sunday. Now, the trouble is if you're marathon training, your hardest workout might be your long run, in which case you would need to make Tuesday your B or C workout. And then Friday would be your B or C workout. Sunday would be your A workout. So the spacing there, I think, can be shorter when you do a big long run. You can take a day easy. You can come back and do your C workout on Tuesday. I think the trouble is when you have a huge interval day that's high VO2 max work, high threshold work, and a lot of it, giving yourself those 2 days in the middle of the week to recover. Sleep-wise, I definitely think as we get older, we need to spend more time sleeping. A couple of the tips that have been hugely important for me as a 40-year-old are blacking out all the windows. Like I even carry with me some trash bags and tape in hotels now or Airbnbs, just to make sure I'm getting good sleep. Earplugs, blue light blocking glasses. The earplugs are hugely important though. I think that's been one of the biggest changes in my sleep as a 40-plus-year-old athlete. The earplugs, I think we're all really responsive to noises. I know I am, especially sleeping. Like things can startle me. And it's not like I can't hear it all with the earplugs in. It's just that it dampens those noises to where I don't wake up. But if there was like an alarm or a kid screaming at night that I needed to attend to, I still wake up and hear that. I just don't hear the subtle noises of the air conditioner turning on or the house creaking or somebody getting up to go to the bathroom. I do think that you can feel better as a 40-year-old, 40 plus. I think you can run a ton, but you've got to not make all the mistakes that you made in your 20s that you didn't realize were actually mistakes. Another huge one, and this is one if you're looking at food and nutrition research, you're seeing more and more research on the detriment of processed foods for your body. It's so fascinating to think about eating as many whole foods as you can and not being hungry all the time. So right now I'm running somewhere between 60 and 80 miles a week and getting 3 grams per kilogram body weight protein, eating mostly whole foods when I'm not training. And I have a really good level of satiety. Like I feel really good mental clarity throughout the day, not experiencing huge crashes at the end of the day of energy. And I think it's primarily because of the whole food focus, the high satiety level focus. And then also during workouts, this is the other mistake I think as a 25-year-old I didn't even know was a mistake. I do 2-hour long runs, 2-hour, 30-minute long runs, workouts that were well over 2 hours, and I would drink nothing and eat nothing during it. That is just such a big mistake, especially as an aging athlete. And in fact, the younger athletes that I'm coaching now, I'm getting them to follow a maximalist fueling strategy to where they're fueling every 30 minutes with some carbohydrate, electrolytes, and water. And fueling during the workouts, protein immediately after, and depending on whether it's an afternoon workout or a morning workout, in the morning we may just do electrolytes, water, and carbohydrates with some caffeine. And then if it's an afternoon workout, then we're getting a really solid whole food, balanced protein, fat, carbohydrate lunch 3 hours before the workout. And then 90 minutes before the workout, we're getting electrolytes, carbohydrates, and then really nothing an hour before to let the stomach settle. But 30 minutes into the workout, we're starting to fuel again. That has been a game changer for recovery afterwards. So one of the goals I'm trying to reach is I want athletes to finish a workout and not be hungry or thirsty. So that means that you fueled before, you fueled during, and you fueled immediately after. So protein immediately after, electrolytes, carbohydrates, and water immediately after. So you're doing your cool down for a workout and you're good. You don't have dry mouth. You're not like wanting to cut the workout or the cool down short so that you can get back to your car and drink and eat, you're actually getting home and you have such a level of satiety that you're like, man, I am just stuffed. I'm full. I've got plenty of water in me, plenty of protein, plenty of carbohydrate. And then you can afford to take a shower, stretch a little bit, maybe do some of your mobility or gym work, and then eat like an hour later. And this is also taking advantage of that 30-minute window that you have to super absorb carbohydrate, protein, electrolytes, and water. You're actually getting it before your cool down. And there's a principle here that I'm kind of going off of, and it's this idea of homeostasis. Once you get behind on your homeostasis, it is so difficult to catch up. So think about when you get behind on sleep, or think about a marathon when you finish, or not when you finish, when you're in the middle of a marathon and you hit the wall with not fueling enough. Like, there's no way you're going to be able to immediately drink and fuel and it's just going to come all the way back. If you can catch it early enough, you can not experience that hitting that wall. I've got an example of this. So I did this 7-hour mountain adventure with Ryan a few months ago. And we brought those water straws that you drink out of water cups, like natural water cups that you just find in the wilderness. It was a dry day. We did not get enough water. We made it to the top of the mountain. We're coming back down the other side. And I think this was God's gift to us. Someone had left a full bottle of an electrolyte drink just on the side of the rocks right there for us. And looked around, no one's there. So we split it. I hadn't reached the point yet where I was starting to cramp, but I felt like a little unstable. We drank that electrolyte drink. We had some gummy bears and other stuff. And all of a sudden I felt amazing. There's an idea or a principle, if you can catch it before it gets out of homeostasis, you're going to be able to experience the benefit. So that's the idea with fueling during your workouts and then right after you finish, not waiting till you get home, being prepared with that stuff. So I think those are just a couple of the things that you can do as a 40-year-old, a 40-plus-year-old. You can create those habits that don't feed off the fact that you just have amazing hormonal balance. And now the biggest ticket would be if you're younger than that and you start doing that now and you create that habit and you never know anything different. Man, think about the heights of performance you can get to if you never dip into that homeostatic imbalance. And there's one thing I want to talk about, like combating, is this idea that you're somehow going to become a master at burning fat as fuel. And as a result of that, we're going to limit your carbohydrates and create this different fueling system. So if you're going to break down fat and turn it into ATP and energy, it's something like 136 steps to do that. Chemical process steps. If you're going to do this with sugar, carbohydrate, it's 24 steps. So you don't have to be great at math to figure out 24 is less than 136. And it doesn't matter how good you get at burning fat, 24 steps is going to be less than 136. So your performance level is going to be higher the better your carbohydrate reserves and blood sugar and continual fueling is. And in fact, if you run at a higher intensity, you're going to burn more total fat anyway. Or else, why would sprinters be lean? Why would they be low body fat? It's because their intensity is extremely high. And even though they're technically using the creatine phosphate energy system, creatine phosphate is rephosphorylated aerobically inside the mitochondria. So that means they're burning fat to create energy. So if you get to higher intensities, you're going to use more fat. You're going to use more creatine phosphate. You're going to use more sugar, glucose. You're going to burn more energy. So that's the goal, is we want to fuel to be able to burn the absolute most that we can burn. And kind of centered behind all of this, like the thought process with sleep and the thought process with fueling and the thought process with timing your workouts. I want to be someone who feels good when I run and when I train and when I lift and when I move through the day. And I want to have enough protein and enough food where I experience mental clarity, high performance, physical health. I just want to, at the very basic, I just want to feel good as much as I can throughout my day. And so why would we not fuel to feel good as well as to perform?